I be going too goddamn far. Really, I be going so goddamn hard. Cause I don't give a fuck. I ain't worried about what you think. I'm not on your ship. I won't be with you when you think.
Like I said, I have a very crazy story for y'all this week. Honestly, this is the most disturbing story that I have ever covered. The whole time I've been doing this show. This is by far the most disturbing story I've ever covered. It is the story of Mitchelle Blair. Now, let me just say this. Before I even get into what she did, when I heard her name and I actually started researching and realized that it wasn't a typo the first time, Mitchelle. It's like Michelle, but they put Mitch in it. So I'm hoping and praying that her father's name was Mitchell. Because otherwise, I could have told y'all a long time ago, you can't trust nobody named Mitchelle. I've never heard the name. I don't like it. I don't like her as a person. Mitchelle, that was a mistake. So, whoever chose the name, I'm sorry, you made a very, very, very grave error in judgment. I would have never trusted a Mitchelle. The name alone sends chills up my spine. But anyway, let's jump right into the true crime. So, for the parents out there, I guess I need to just ask y'all directly, what would you do? And listener discretion for this episode. So if you have little ones, this is not the episode of the Black Podcast Show that they need to be listening to. Seriously. If you got a weak stomach, if you don't like hearing about true crime, just know that this is a heavy episode. Seriously. But yeah. So parents, mothers, what would you do if you found out that your child had been sexually assaulted? I assume that your immediate response is going to be to bring harm to whomever assaulted the child. I assume that your immediate response is going to be to resolve the situation. I assume that as a parent, you would probably be broken more than anything right off bat. You know? I assume that you probably wouldn't know how to handle that situation. But I assume probably your first instinct would be to bring harm, possibly even death, to the person that caused such destruction to your child. And I think that's a fair response. I don't think anybody would disagree. I don't think anybody would say you're overreacting. I think anybody with a half a brain and a half a heart would completely understand a parent's extreme reaction to finding out their child had been sexually abused. But what do you do? How do you react? How do you resolve when the abuser is another one of your own children? Is your first instinct still to hurt and even kill that abuser? The same way you would react if it was, a family member, a different family member, or even a random person, or even a friend or neighbor. Well, Mitchelle found herself in that situation, and I think that she handled the situation in a way that nobody expected, and that a lot of us consider inappropriate and unacceptable, but it was the way she saw fit. So back in March of 2015, late March 2015, 35-year-old Mitchelle Blair was arrested and charged with 2 counts of felony murder. She was charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder and 1 count of torture for the deaths of her 2 children, 13-year-old Stoney and 9-year-old Stephen. Now, let's just go back a couple years to when Stoney and Steven actually died. So this is a picture here of obviously Mitchelle in custody. That's Stoney up top and Steven on bottom. And it really breaks my heart to even see this picture because I don't think they deserved this. But Mitchelle had 4 kids. She didn't just have Stoney and Steven. I won't call the names of the surviving 2, but she had an older daughter, and then there was Stoney, then there was Steven, and then she had a baby boy. So I'll just call him baby boy, and I'll call the older girl the oldest girl. So one day Mitchelle comes home to her oldest daughter, meeting her at the door and telling her that baby boy was making his 2 male wrestling dolls hump each other. Alarmed by the news, Mitchelle questioned the boy. She asked him, excuse me, baby boy, why are you doing this? Baby boy, where did you see this? Where did you get this from? Did somebody do this to you? And I mean, to me, that's a fair line of questioning. Right off the bat, she addresses it. She doesn't try to run away from it. She asks him, why are you doing this? Where did you get it from? Did someone do this to you? He denies it. And then he said yes. He revealed that his older brother, Steven, had been humping him, had been doing what he was making his wrestling dolls do to him. And so Mitchelle is immediately distressed. She immediately leaves the room, immediately starts walking back and forth in the hallway, and then she grabs Steven and starts questioning him. And as you can imagine, she immediately became enraged at Steven's answers. When Mitchelle asked Steven, did you do that? She expected him to say, what? No, I didn't do that. According to Mitchelle, she knew her kids, and she knew that had he not done it, that's what he would have said. But she said he just looked. For a while, he just looked at her and didn't say anything. And she said immediately that's when she knew that he had done it. And then she said he admitted to it. He said, yes, I did do it, but that's all. And then she said she left the room again. She said she remembers pacing back and forth in the hallway. And then she came back in the room and she asked him, did you hump him without your underwear? And Steven said no, but baby boy interrupted and said, yes, he did. Mind you, baby boy around this time was about 5, maybe 6. So to me, for him to make those kind of allegations is a bit extreme. So if he was lying, unfortunately, that's when the torture began for Steven. In some stories that I've read and some of the research that I've done, she started punching Steven after he made all these confessions. And I mean, she was punching him, beating the hell out of him over and over again. But in a couple of the cases that I heard, she was beating him to make him admit. So she immediately believed baby boy and started beating Steven, telling him to tell her the truth, to say that he did it. And so the thing that bothers me about that is those are 2 totally different things. If she asked him before hitting him and he said yes, that's one thing. But if she, as his mother, is beating the hell out of him and saying, say you did this, admit to it, that's different. That's him saying he did it because he was getting the hell beat out of him, like I said. So that kind of concerned me. She threw scalding hot water on his genitals in the bathtub because, according to her, he, quote, ruined her son with his dick. And as all this torture went on for a couple of weeks, baby boy kept telling her more and more stuff. And in some situations, she would actually recreate what baby boy told her happened to him. So baby boy told her that in the middle of the night sometimes Steven would make him get up, take him to the basement, and make him drink blue stuff. So Mitchelle said she didn't know what that meant, so she made him show her. And he took her to the basement, and there was Windex down there. And baby boy said that Steven was making him drink the Windex. So she made Steven drink Windex. In addition to her beating him, scalding him, she made him drink Windex. And then she said that the baby boy told her that Steven used to pee on him. So she thought that because, the baby boy was 5 or 6, she thought he was a bedwetter. Come to find out, according to baby boy, Steven was peeing on him. Steven was waking up every morning peeing on him. And so she had put plastic covers on his mattress. Of course, parents that have bedwetters, you know what that is. Or if you used to be a bedwetter, you know what that is. So she had plastic covers on the mattress, and baby boy told her, and this is when it starts getting really bad. It's already bad, but baby boy told her that when Steven was, humping him or whatever, assaulting him basically, he would push his face in the plastic, the mattress cover, and he couldn't breathe. And so Mitchelle would put a plastic bag over Steven's head and ask him how he felt. Ask him did he like that. Ask him could he breathe. And so then baby boy said that Steven would wrap a shirt or his cover or something around his neck so he couldn't breathe or so to choke him. And so Mitchelle wrapped a belt around Steven's neck and would basically hold him up by the neck in a noose fashion. And man, that's just a lot to me. I'm just like, I feel for baby boy, but goodness. So, and according to baby boy, this happened every night. That Steven his older brother was supposedly sexually molesting him. And at one point, baby boy said that Steven was humping his butt like a basketball, and that he peed in his eye, but it was gooey. So you can just imagine what that was. Now, Steven was only 9 years old, so I don't know how true any of this is, y'all. And I don't know why Mitchelle would lie, or I don't know why baby boy, I don't think a child could lie about all that. A child has no knowledge of all that. So, when Mitchelle heard all that, obviously she was broken and she was enraged, and she, like I said, tortured Steven so severely that he eventually succumbed to his injuries. He died. And according to Mitchelle, she didn't mean to kill Steven. She states over and over again that she did not mean to kill Steven, but that she did not regret his death. She wasn't remorseful. But she stated that the day before Steven actually died, she had told herself that she was going to stop because he looked really bad. According to her, she wasn't starving him, but he had lost weight and he was just throwing up. And so the next morning, after she claims that she was about to stop the abuse and torture, she goes in his room, and he was laying in like a pile of his own throw up. She said that his heartbeat was very faint, and according to her, he usually had a very strong heartbeat. And so she took him to the bathroom, and she said that he couldn't hold himself up. And, eventually, as she was holding him, she said he died in her arms. And she wrapped him up in his favorite comforter. It was some kind of cartoon bedspread. And she put him in the deep freezer that was in the family's living room. Yes, Mitchelle Blair tortured her son for 2 weeks until he died, And then she took his body, his 9-year-old body, and put it in the freezer, the deep freezer of her living room. Now, I didn't really... The thing is, we'll probably never know, and maybe it's best, but I don't know where the other children were when Mitchelle did this, because it doesn't make sense to me that they didn't know that their little brother was in the deep freezer at that time. So I don't know if they did know or what, but I don't know if they were still using the deep freezer either. That's another thing that concerns me, was his body in there next to food, frozen food that they went on to actually use. So that's the part that's concerning. So some months go by, Steven's body is still in the freezer, and baby boy reveals that his older sister, Stoney, had sexually assaulted him as well. So Stoney is the second oldest now. Stoney's the middle child now. She's the baby girl at this point. And baby boy revealed that Stoney had sexually assaulted him as well. He said that Stoney would make him watch her and Steven do what he referred to as the nasty stuff. Okay, so real quick, if you're watching, I just want you to take a quick glance at the screen. And this is, we're showing now pictures of the Blair's apartment, or the projects. So the apartment and the projects. And this picture really disturbed me. A lot of the pictures you're going to see are going to disturb you because Mitchelle Blair lived in a nasty-ass household. She wasn't the cleanest woman, as I'm sure you can imagine. But hold on, go back real quick, Llama, to that picture of the freezer. That deep freezer picture disturbs me because you can see that there's a chair sitting in front of the deep freezer. The reason that concerns me is just because unless the police moved that right there, I feel like Mitchelle was sitting in front of that deep freezer sometimes talking to her kids. Why would that chair be right there facing the deep freezer? Either Mitchelle maybe was sitting in front of it talking to the kids, dead bodies, or, you know, I don't know, maybe one of the other kids was. To me, it's just disturbing that that chair is right there facing the opening of the deep freezer like that. So anyway, so like I said, months later, baby boy reveals that Stoney, his older sister, would make him watch her and Steven do the nasty stuff, as he called it, and then they would both assault him. That they would make him do nasty stuff. And so, of course, at this point, Mitchelle is beside herself. You know, not only is she enraged, but she is probably once again even more broken. One thing that Mitchelle indicates in every interview that I've seen of her is that she was very, very, very... She felt very strongly about people touching kids. And what I mean she felt strongly is that she hated it. That was something that was big for her, that she would protect any kid that was being molested, or she would protect any kid from being molested. So that was something that was really big for her because as a child, according to Mitchelle, she had been sexually assaulted by a friend of her mother's, a female friend of her mother's. And I don't know if that's the only time it occurred, but obviously that had a very big impact on Mitchelle, a very negative impact on Mitchelle. So she stated that it took her a very long time to come clean to her mom and tell her, hey, Mom, this is what happened to me. And she said when she told her mom said, well, bitch, what the fuck you want me to do about it? It's already done with now. And honestly, that broke my heart for Mitchelle. Because what kind of mother says that to their child? Even if Mitchelle told her as a grown-ass adult woman, your only response as the mother should have been going to that female house and beating the fuck out of her. And excuse my language, but that's, to me, that's the only, anything else is uncivilized. But that's not what Mitchelle mothers did. And so, in turn, Mitchelle probably had a very, very deep sense of insecurity. And I don't mean insecurity as far as, oh, I'm not attractive, or oh, I'm fat, or I'm ugly, but I mean she felt unsecure in every sense of the word. I believe that Mitchelle probably had a very deep insecurity, and she was determined that her kids would never feel that way. So, with Steven telling her that Stoney had did that stuff to her, she immediately began abusing Stoney. And pretty much a similar way to the way she abused Steven. She immediately, but it was a little bit more severe. She hit Stoney with her fists, she punched her, she beat her, but she also beat her with wooden planks. She would use 2x4s to beat her. And I mean, Stoney's what Baby Boy said that Stoney did to him was extreme. At one point, he said that Stoney would actually take her menstrual pads and make him, I can barely say it, but she would squeeze the blood out and basically into his mouth or something like that. And to me, that's so extreme for a child to say all that. But that's what Baby Boy said, according to Mitchelle. And so, of course, once he told Mitchelle all that, she was just beating the hell out of Stoney. She started starving Stoney. And she asked Stoney at one point, tell me why Steven didn't tell me that it was you, that you had done this to him. And according to her, around the time when Mitchelle was torturing Steven, she didn't want to see him. So once she got done beating him, she would send him to his room. And even when it was dinner time, he wasn't allowed to come down. And she said that Stoney would volunteer to take Steven's food to his room. And apparently once she took his food to his room, she would just beat his ass again. And tell him, you better not tell Mom that I did this to you. And because Mitchelle had put so many bruises and scars and everything on Steven, she didn't notice the ones that Stoney was putting on him. So, I don't know how true all this is. To me, I can't figure out why Mitchelle, I don't know. To me, all this just seems very extreme. It all seems very extreme. Now, to add insult to injury, in the early 2000s, I want to say 2005 and maybe 2006, I know it was the early 2000s, Mitchelle had already gotten CPS involved in her family business for allegations of abuse. So this occurred, like I said, twice. And I believe the first time it was because the two girls had the same father and the two boys had the same father. So the girls had at some point went to their father's house, and their father's sister was bathing them, and she noticed scars all over the girls' backs. And what the dad said was they looked like, of course she called the dad in there, and the dad said they looked like healed whelps. So, of course, they called CPS, and basically CPS just simply referred Mitchelle to services. And there was no way to find out if she actually followed up and attended those services because somehow her file was destroyed. Now, mind you, these allegations of abuse were substantiated. A medical professional agreed that they looked like scars left from abuse. But nothing ever happened. And then a year or so later, and she's once again up on these charges or these abuse allegations, they are found to be substantiated, and nothing. So I'm just gonna say it. Detroit CPS in general, but Detroit CPS dropped the ball on that one. They really, really dropped the ball on that one. The fact that there was no follow up, these abuse allegations were absolutely substantiated, absolutely found to be true, and nothing was done. But what I will also say is the fathers weren't in any kind of place to take their kids either. Neither of the fathers had their own housing. The boy's father was in and out of jail all the time. And the girl's father just said that every time he called about his daughters, he was told, oh, she's at an aunt's house, or oh, she's mad at you, or they don't want to talk to you. And so the fathers claim that they were purposely kept out of the children's life. And both fathers claim that Mitchelle told them that they weren't allowed at her home. So, I mean, just a extreme situation. Like I said, March 2015 is when Mitchelle was arrested. So she killed Stephen first. Stephen was killed in August of 2012. And Stormy was killed about almost 9 months later in May of 2013. And just in court, man, this lady is a piece of work. Just in court, her outburst and her lack of remorse. Just look at her. She looks gross. This is one of the times where she was outbursting, telling the fathers that they had never been there. She begged them to come see their kids. Every time their kids wanted to go with them, they were busy. And I believe her on that. I honestly, to be honest, I feel very sorry for Mitchelle. Now, I don't by any means justify what she did. I don't by any means want to take anything away from what she did, because those kids did not deserve that. And if what she said really occurred in terms of the sexual abuse, the kids needed help, because for any little girl, Stormy, to be sexually abusing her little brothers, something happened to her. I believe something had to have happened to her for her to do that to them, to feel that was, for her to repeat that came from somewhere. And it's just a really sad situation. Ultimately, she did go to jail for life. And one thing I hated when I watched, because I watched a lot of the trial, and one thing that I hated was initially she just, of course, admits to the murders and says that she wants the death penalty. She'll take life. She'll take the death penalty. And no, you don't get the death penalty. I'm glad that Detroit doesn't have the death penalty. The state of Michigan, rather. You don't get that. You don't get to decide, she probably does want to die. She act like she has no remorse, but at the end of the day, you don't kill your kids, no matter who you are, and feel nothing at all. I don't believe that. And at one point, she even tells the judge, because they had to actually do, whatever the test is to determine if a person is sane enough, is competent enough, rather, to stand trial. And so she was pretty much questioning, why do I have to go to trial? Why is this necessary? I did what I did. I'm not going to ever come back and say that I didn't do it. I'm not going to ever come back and say that I didn't understand. I killed them, and I feel no remorse. Those was not my kids. Those were demons. She says those words. And then at one point, she even says, I'm not a coward. I'll stand up and face my time. I'll do my time. I'm not a coward. Yes, the fuck you are. What the fuck are you talking about? You hid them kids' bodies in your fucking deep freezer in your living room, bro, for 2 years. Like, how the fuck are you not a coward, bitch? You didn't go to jail. You did not turn yourself in. And according to her, after she killed Stoney, she told baby boy, I have to turn myself in. I killed somebody. I'm going to jail. And she said, he was asking her, what does that mean? What are you saying? And she told him, I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to jail. And according to her, Mitchelle, he told her he didn't want her to go. And so because of that, because of quote unquote everything he had been through, she wasn't going to leave him. But once she got arrested and the kids got a medical exam, they found over 25 healed bruises and scratches and welts and belt marks and extension cord marks all over both of the kids' bodies. Now, mind you, at this point, the oldest girl is 17. A baby boy is like 6, 7 at this point. So, or I think he was 8. He was 8. Yeah, he was 8 and she was 17. How is it that you doing all this to quote unquote protect your kids, but the only one to steady abusing them is you? It's not normal to constantly leave marks on your kid's body as a form of discipline. That's not normal. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. So, you know, she can say she loves her kids all she wants, but I find that hard to believe.